Today I want to show you a project that I'm very excited about, that I've been working on for a little while. I'm making a conversion army out of Genestealer cults where I'm theming it into chaos. I've always loved the stories of Eisenhorn and Gideon Ravener, and they have some villains that are fantastic. The villains of those books have always had this sense of intelligence and plans within plans, scheming, and the ability to manipulate the worlds that they are on to get what they want. And that has always intrigued me, and that style, normal chaos doesn't really do for me. Chaos Space Marines always feel too brute force for me. So that's why I'm making this army where I'm taking Genestealer cults, which have this scheming, plotting style of both their objective play, where they are about playing the mission rather than getting rid of your enemy, and manipulating your opponent's strategies so that you win. And that speaks to me. I've always loved that style of play. So that's why I am making this army. And I want to take you through the process over a series of episodes, if you like, where I take you first on the road to 500 points, then maybe 1,000 points, and then probably 2,000 points as I build up this army, hopefully over the course of the next 4 months, maybe a little less if I'm good at this, if I do this well. Hopefully during early spring I can take this army out and play it against some of my normal board game club opponents, assuming pandemics allow. Yeah. Let's get to it. A couple of months ago, a little while before I decided I had to do this army, I saw on another YouTube channel called Curious TV a range review of Genestealer cults and another review of the Necromunda line of miniatures. And he showed the Achilles Ridge Runner, and on Games Workshop's page for the Achilles Ridge Runner, there's this amazing conversion of the Achilles Ridge Runner in this Maxian style that I just knew I had to make it. So this project kind of began from that point where I knew I had to try that. The project combined fantastic use of rust effects and adding some spikes, giving the miniatures some hoods, and although there's some techniques there, rust, green stuffing hoods and so on, that I've never tried before, I decided I'm gonna have to do that. So I started building my Achilles Ridge Runner. And one more. I'm nearly done with the second one. Unfortunately, when I made this one, I made some mistakes. Later learned that I shouldn't have put the wheels on. The painting of the suspension and dirtying that up is going to be quite hard later. Access to that area is not going to be as easy. So we should have done that in reverse order. But other than that, happy with the first result. Overall, assembling the Achilles Ridge Runner was a joy. There was no warping or bent panels, and everything went together quite seamlessly. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And the assembly itself is pretty straightforward. Just don't glue on the wheels before you've painted the suspension. So I'm just finishing up the first part of the assembly of the vehicle itself, and now I'm getting to the miniatures. I decided to scrape away the ridges that all the Genestealer cult models have on their heads, on their forehead. It's a very distinct identifier for the faces of Genestealer cults, these ridges on their forehead. I scraped those off, and then I decided I want to give them these sort of hoods or cloaks, and this is my first foray into green stuff, and it failed for the first few times. I may have painted for 12 years or so Warhammer models, but I've never green stuff before. But I decided to give it a shot. First try didn't work, second try didn't, third try didn't, fourth try didn't, fifth time success. So it's just a matter of giving it a few shots. Luckily with green stuff, I found that you can actually dig away and brush away with a wet old brush the majority of the green stuff on the head or part, and try again. So I just tried again and again and again, and fifth try, success. Yeah, I'm really happy how these two turns out. I'm really happy to actually have succeeded with green stuff, although it took a while. It took a few attempts. But in the end, and it worked, and I'm just removing fingerprints and so on at the end here with a brush. It's just an old battered brush that dipped in some water and then just shaping the cloth around the head. This is one of the details on Games Workers page that I just knew I had to attempt, I had to do for my own, and really happy about it. Gluing together the second one and doing it again. And these are the sort of things that I'm really excited about doing with this project, making these sorts of little adjustments, conversions and so on. Theming the army, still definitely recognizably an Achilles Ridge Runner, but the models don't have the foreheads of typical Genestealer cult members that they get from the mutations, which these kinds of things that are recognizable, these kind of key traits that make you identify them as Genestealer cults, removing those and adding something else. I'm also obviously not going to paint on any Genestealer cult symbols on the hull. Instead, I'm using gang marks is actually what I'm going for with these, or just no marks at all. My theory is for this is that these chaos cult leaders and heretic families have hired and brought together different gangs from different worlds and are hiring them as mercenaries to attain their goals. In this case, an outrider gang of sorts, maybe kind of like the Orlocks that they control a system of transportation in the world. I imagine kind of like the Orlocks do in Necromunda. And so in the same way, I'm making these sort of desert, wasteland, badland set of gangers that kind of have this Maxian style. And this is a lot of what I'll be doing later as well for the rest of the models, is utilizing either similar models like the gangers to represent cultists, but with similar, like where I would have brought a Genestealer cult's acolyte with a stubber, instead I'll bring an Orlok ganger with a stubber, or similar, or just changing the models themselves slightly. I've also have some plans for some Adelan jackals and some ideas for other models where I want to convert them. Also, just little stylistic things. Again, the model that I saw on Games Workshop page for the Achilles Ridge Runner had spikes on the front, and I just knew I had to try that. So I grabbed some sprue from, I think this is from a Kingdom Death set, a Kingdom Death monster, and that worked okay. But later I decided to try just some normal Games Workshop sprue leftovers and carving those down with a hobby knife, a scalpel, and then gluing them on as spikes. Yeah, worked really well. One thing I want to try later, but not on this one yet, is the one I saw used green stuff to create welding marks at the seam where the spikes meet the hull, and I want to, at some point, try and replicate that, but not now. Yeah, and this is just one of my first kind of forays into this sort of customization and adjusting and changing an army into the style that I want. Yeah, I play Tau normally, which is very different, and they're fun, but they don't really tactically speak to me that much compared to how Genestealer cults do, so I decided I just had to try and play their style of objective play. I don't like the aesthetics of Genestealer cults with the way that they have the Tyranid aesthetic tied in. I don't particularly like it, which is why I decided to go for this. Combine the styles of pop culture that I like, and yeah, I think it's turning out pretty great. So if you want to see me paint some Achilles Ridge Runners in the future, and some Adelan Jackals and other models, and well, a whole army, I have some plans for converting all of them in this army. Follow me on this channel, subscribe. If you think it deserves it, like it or dislike it, or make a comment if you have some questions. And if you want to see me paint these up and add the different sorts of weather effects and rust, I'll show you that in the future. Thanks for now.